Before we begin, Kobe, would you lead us in a prayer, please?
Great God and Father in heaven, we are so thankful for another day. Thankful for the weather that has been given to us this day to enjoy the spring-like temperatures, to begin to see your earth come back to life from the dormant winter. We're so thankful that you are the one who sustains our lives, for the very opportunity that is afforded to us at this moment to assemble ourselves as brothers and sisters in Christ, to open up your word and to study it, to think about our tongues and the words in which we speak, dear Lord, to take thought of that, because so much harm that can come from that. And we just pray that we are mindful always of the thoughts that we may have, the words that we may speak, and for the deeds that we may accomplish. I pray that you'll be with our brother Dickie as he brings forth the bread of life for us. Help us to have hearts and minds open and attentive. Dear Lord, we are most of all thankful for your Son, Jesus. Please forgive us of any unforgiven sins. Be with us always. In your Son's name we pray.
Amen. The lesson next week is out there. It's lesson 11. We're skipping 10. We had one lesson where we had the cold weather. We're going to have to skip one, so we're skipping the next one. So the lesson number 11 is available out there on the table out front if you want to get that. Somebody turn to Proverbs 12:18 and read that. So we're talking about speech, and of course it's caustic speech, but we need to be kind with our speech, and our speech means means a lot. What does slow to speak and swift to hear mean to you? Right. Think about what you're going to speak. We just speak up too quick sometimes, and say things that we wish we had never spoken, and you cannot ever take your words back. But how important is our speech to our salvation? Very important. I mean, our words can condemn us very easily and tell us that they very probably will have a lot of them that we wish we had taken back because we cannot tame our tongue. Exactly. Thank you. Okay, let's read Matthew 12:33 through 37. Somebody read that. It's a pretty good reading. Matthew 12:33 through 37.
Either make the tree good and its fruit good, or else make the tree bad and its fruit bad. For a tree is known by its fruit. Brood of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure brings forth evil things. But I say to you that for every idle word men may speak, they will give an account of it in the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned.
So it's very important what we speak. This was an interesting thing to me. Okay. English is hard. I put this up there for reasons. It says, English is one of the hardest languages to learn that there is. And it says, this thing says, we'll begin with box, and the plural of box is boxes, but the plural of an ox becomes oxen, not oxen. One fowl is a goose, but two are called geese. The plural of moose should never be meese. You may find a lone mouse or a mouse, yet the plural of house is not house. If the plural of man is always called men, why shouldn't the plural of pan be called pen? If I speak of my foot and show you my feet, and I give you a boot, would a pair be called a beat? If one is a tooth and a whole set is teeth, why shouldn't the plural of booth be called beef? Then one may be that three would be those, yet hat in the plural would never be hose. And the plural of cat is cats, not coes. We speak of a brother, and also of brethren, but also we say mother, we never say methering. Then the masculine pronouns are he, his, and him, but the plural is not thee, this, or them. And that is really unreal how tough that language is. So that's a good thing to think about, how tough it is and why the language is so hard. The English language is being difficult because it makes a good case for importance of being face-to-face, because so many things mean different words and you cannot see. Face-to-face is just the way it ought to be. Together, that's the way that God wants us to be as a congregation. But you just take that, there's just so many things that we can do when we're communicating through phones and things of that nature, and emails and things, and Facebook, that you don't get what speech should be. Now, there's no doubt that COVID church. Eric Sanders wrote, I fear that this individualistic culture we live in may tempt us to deliberate and decide privately whether or not and when to return to assembling with the saints. But isolated thinking on important issues is rarely wise. Proverbs 18:1 says, he who separates himself seeks his own desire. He quarrels against all sound wisdom. Question, does absence make the heart grow fonder? Yeah, it can, it cannot, but what about out of sight, out of mind? When you just take, for instance, somebody read 2 John 12. That's a very good passage for this. 2 John 12. And whatever. I didn't put the other words in there.
Having many things that I would do, I would not write on paper and ink, but I trust to come to you and speak face to face. Their joy may be full.
That's what I want to hear. The joy may be full. That is a key thing, that your joy may be full. Can you sit at home and watch it being streamed and feel any joy whatsoever? You won't feel any different when you watched it there than you did when you started. But when you come to this building and we come together where we can hear each other and see our speech face to face, it's a whole new ball game, isn't it? I mean, you can come feeling bad, but when you leave, you will be uplifted. But the thing I have wondered about, I don't think that ever I've heard of any eldership that's ever disfellowshipped anybody for just attending one worship. Because, they say, well, he didn't say, they said, come together to break bread. Well, does it say anything about a Wednesday night service? No. Sunday evening service? No. We don't know where they had that, or Bible classes or whatever. But my point is, you ever just thought about, if we don't like being with our brethren while we're here on earth, what makes us think that we're going to enjoy heaven? This is who we're trying to be in eternity with. And to me, we should be every opportunity that we get to be with each other, we should come together. And I'll guarantee you, when you're together, when you go home, you feel a lot better. And I'll tell you something else too, is meeting and getting with brethren outside this environment of the church building. Seeing them, and you get to see a different person. You get to know them. you get to be closer to them. And I saw a different Kobe, and than I see in his pulpit. But I like that Kobe too. And I didn't know he was a card shark, but I like that Kobe, and I liked all the other people that I saw there. You get a connection there, and with family. And if you're going to spend eternity, or you can't spend eternity, if you're going to be in eternity with somebody, why wouldn't you want to be with them now? And I just thought it was so good, and we need to do that more. Okay. What is the meaning of caustic speech? What do you think it is?
Well, a lot of certain people, you say the word caustic, that means it's either going to deteriorate what it touches, or rust, or something like that.
Well, it ain't good, is it? It's severely critical or sarcastic, and like you say, it's caustic speech. Yes. Good point. When somebody says this guy was using 4-letter words, what comes to your mind? Curse words, yeah. Does Kobe use 4-letter words and Frank in the pulpit? Yeah. Love, care, grow, kind, safe, save, heal, hope, give. He gives 4-letter words a bad name, doesn't it? But that's just the way it is. That's what we think, because it's just so many we hear talk that way. But Proverbs 15:1 says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. So the question is, what should we speak? And that is that which is true. Somebody turn to Ephesians 4:25 and Ephesians 4:1 and Ephesians 4:17. 4:25 Ephesians and 4:1, somebody did that, and 4:17 in Ephesians.
Therefore, putting away lying, let each one of you speak truth to his neighbor, for we are all members of one another.
Ephesians 4:1. Yeah, Ephesians 4:17.
This I say therefore, testify unto the Lord, that ye henceforth walk proud of the Gentiles walk, and with their mind.
Okay, and we're not to live like the world. We're different. We're supposed to be different. And 2 Corinthians 5:17 tells us, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things are passed away. Behold, all are new. It was an interesting thing about that new creation. I was sitting with a visitor the other day, and he turned over here and he says, he come up on that song. I think it's like 487, 482, or whatever it is there. In new creation, he said, we don't ever sing that except at a baptism. And he said, most of the time, he said, you don't ever hear him sing it. But he said, we're new creation all the time. He said, that's a wonderful song, but we don't sing it much. I thought it was pretty interesting. I never thought about that either. But the word, all things have become new. When we become a Christian, when we come up out of that water, all things are to be new to us. And that new includes our speech. Our speech should give us away. You know that Peter's gave him away for a bad reason, but our speech should give us away in a good way. Have you always answered others as you want to be answered? Can you say that? Whew, I have regretted some words. Ooh, I tell you, it's just, I really wish I hadn't said a whole lot of things in this world, but you can never take them back. You can remember things that people said to you. I used to say a few years back, I remember 50, 60 years or more back, things that people said to me and things that I said I wish I hadn't have said. But we haven't, but the thing about it is, when we're supposed to give a soft answer, but in the world that we live in and so forth, seem like that many folks think that a soft answer is a weakness. I think, he's a wimp. Boy, if he'd have said that to me, he'd have been laying on the ground over here. But it's interesting to me that people don't understand that a soft answer will turn away wrath. And this guy that came down to teach me to try to butcher some, cut meat and all, once upon a time, and said a guy that he would pull up to a red light, and it's back when they had shifts and all the time, and he said he wouldn't even get his foot out on the clutch. This guy, beep, 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 so he finally just stopped and went back, and the guy said, "Don't you come back in." And he looked bad, and he said, "I just want to tell you if I've offended you anyway," and started like that. So the guy just hunkered down in there, just shamed him to death, and so, but a lot of times though, that don't happen. It goes the other way, but you have to account for that. But it does. What does a soft answer really indicate about a person? When he gives a soft answer, what does that indicate about that person?
They've got self-control.
Exactly. Self-control. And I'll tell you what, I have some of the worst problem with self-control. I think we all have our besetting sins and things, which self-control comes in there too. And one of them is that we speak too quick sometimes and all. But we have, they talk about Brother Jim and we talk so much, but we've got it settled now that when I visit him, we've got a 5-minute rule up, and we decide which one says something. So I get to talk 5 minutes, that's up, and then he gets to talk 5 minutes. So that way we don't interrupt each other. So we try to be kind doing all that kind of stuff. But we need to speak to others like we want to be spoken to. And but how do you want people to speak to you? Really, I mean, you want to be kind? Yeah, exactly. Little things make a difference. James tells us, even though a tongue is a little member and boasts great things, see how great a forest a little fire kindles. It's just a little thing, but it does some big things. When we read about the tongue in James 3, what kind of picture do we get of the tongue? When we think of James 3, you're talking about tongue, what kind of picture? Is it a good thing or it could be dangerous? It's a fire. But the one thing about it is, down at the bottom, we sometimes forget this, down at the bottom it says, should good blessings come and cursings from the same mouth. So it tells us that blessings can come from that mouth. And that's the part that we should dwell upon, is the blessings that we are to have come out of our mouth. A kind word has great potential, like an invitation. Our speech can make a difference to others. When we think about our purpose to love God and to love our neighbor in Matthew 22:37, one of our greatest challenges that we face in this life is connecting with other people. We see all kind of people, and we walk, and it's just like sometimes folks walk along like they feel like they're the only one in this world and nobody speaks to them. But the thing about it is, can you connect with other people without talking to them? Well, it's good to have a smile when you speak to folks. It's amazing how saying good morning can affect you. Walking in the park, I speak to the dogs. And that can get you into a long discussion. In fact, today, I was walking over there, and this lady and I don't understand how this happens, is no matter what time I go to walk, I seem to meet the same people. I don't know, I guess it's maybe the weather, we see it the same way or something, but this one person just looks like she's lost her last friend, and may have. I don't know. It comes through and I speak every time. So just keep speaking and speaking. So I thought, okay. So today I was over there, I spoke to the dog. That brought on more talk. I got to see that dog. I got a thing to hand that dog, and I handed him a little treat, and then he shook my hand, and then she showed me all the other stuff he could do, and we talked a while, and I said, that was pretty interesting. So I walked and come on home. So this afternoon, I didn't have my 10,000 steps. I said, I'm going to walk the park again. So I went over, and then all the dogs was over, and I spoke to all of them, and I like to never got around over there. So they look at you. Sometimes people will look at you like you have you lost your mind? And but there's one lady that would never speak. 2 or 3 times I would say good evening, and smile when you speak, and I'd say good evening and good morning or whatever it is. And finally I spoke to her dog, and that woman get the friendliest you've ever seen. So, that's the thing. It's you can just really connect with people if you smile and speak to them. Okay. Thank you, Dustin. Proverbs 16:24. Pleasant words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul with health to the bones. So speaking with kindness is healthy, and really, it does you a lot of good when you get somebody to smile and you can encourage them and make them feel better. It makes you feel better. So, question: who benefits from kind words? Everybody does. You kind words, you like them, and everybody else does. A good word has power to uplift spirits, inspire positivity, positively rather, and strengthen relationships, whether it's a compliment, encouragement, or a kind gesture. Okay, things that will edify. That's what we need to speak. What is the definition of edify? Build up. Instructive or informative in a way that improves the mind or character. To be edified means to be strengthened spiritually. Things that are edifying build up a person, especially in an intellectual or moral way. And it's just really encouraging when you can be down and out and somebody can speak a good word and it can bring you right back up to where you need to be. Excuse me, go ahead. Preaching the word. Evangelism, yes. That and in benevolence. Exactly. Yeah. And about loving each other too, and all it. To me, that's the second commandment too. That what we're to do is to love one another, and especially in a minute we'll get to how we're supposed to talk to brethren. But somebody turn to Ephesians 4:29 and read that. Is edification, when you're edifying somebody, you're trying to be always pleasant, for instance, is it pleasant to the hearer as a general rule, but can it be that different too when you're going to try to edify them? It can be, because sometimes when you tell people what they need to hear instead of what they want to hear, sometimes it's not what they want to hear, but it's really for their benefit. It turns out to be the best thing. Any other comments or anything about edify? Anybody? Speak things that will impart grace. We like grace and mercy for ourselves, but we should also give to others that in our words. What is grace? A gift not earned, owned, or necessarily deserved. And God's grace is certainly wonderful for us because by grace we're saved. And somebody read Colossians 4:6.
Let your speech always be with grace, as though seasoned with salt, so that you will know how you should respond to each person.
Okay, Frank told us the meaning of salt, seasoning with salt. That was to bring out the flavor, to lift it up and to make it be better. And the thing is, how you ought to answer each one or every man, that includes, I know we talked about, a lot of times how we speak to each other as Christians, but to every man, we should be something that would build them up and be seasoned with salt no matter who we're talking to. But one thing that's interesting to me is what ought not to be heard. I thought this was pretty good. What ought not to be heard by little ears should not be spoken by big mouths. And have you ever heard a grown person having their mouth washed out with soap? A grown person? Did you do it to Kobe? Yeah, but I never did. But I know when you was young you did. What did that mean? That mean that you had a bad word. But we got to ask something. Where did that word come from? Where did they hear it? It's amazing. To me, it seems like in this world we live in, there's certain ages that you can do everything, different things, whether you drive at a certain age, you can drink at a certain age, you can smoke at a certain age, you can do all this other stuff at a certain age. And it's just kind of like that with talking. Son, you hear you talking in front of your child like that, or young folks, and then when they do that, you want to beat up on them, but then they get a little older, you don't beat up on them. It's okay. It's just like it become all right. And we just have double standards all through our lives, and that's part of it, I think. But you come a certain age, you can do certain things. But somebody read 2 Peter 3:18. Okay. All right. We're looking at words and speech that stir wrath. Someone turn to Proverbs 18:6, and somebody Proverbs 15:1, and Proverbs 30:33. Proverbs 18:6, 15:1, and 30:33.
A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger.
30:33. Okay. 1 Kings 12:13-17. The Bible records for us how the nation of Israel was divided because King Rehoboam failed to give a gentle answer to his people. In there it said, and the king answered the people roughly and forsook the old men's counsel they gave him. And there was, remember that they gave him, the old men gave him all good counsel, what they should do to lighten up and all that. But then here comes the Rehoboam, and he took the advice of the young people and all this, make it harder on them. But the rough answer, that caused the nation to divide. And then what it does is talking about stirring up wrath and things of that nature. I think the short answer to how we should handle things is to stop stirring and, just stop it and quit. But it's just hard. Sometimes our mind don't get in gear. It's just like that's slow to speak. Then we talk about gossip and slander. A perverse man sows strife, and a whisperer or slanderer separates the best of friends. And we've seen it many times. It's hard sometimes for three people to be friends. And I know when with work, me and the guy that was the manager up there, and another guy that was he was deal rate for me and all. We were all friends, and we were going. One person died from GBMK, and we were going to go to the funeral. And I asked the guy, I said, "Do you mind if I ride with you?" But the other guy said, when he found out that I was riding with him, he didn't want to ride with us. And I thought, what? This is crazy. Why can't three people be friends? They can if they get on the same page. I mean, that's unreal, but that's the way it is. People are jealous. Each one of us, at one time or another, has been an object of another person's gossip. We know all too well the power of the tongue to hurt and destroy. And how many of you in here has ever been a victim of gossip or something untrue people said about you? Just about everybody that said something, about you one time or another. And it's cruel. And the problem is that even if you get it corrected, like we talked about last week, maybe 2 or 3 people heard it, and then maybe only one of the people heard that you got it corrected, and the others always believe that from then on. But what does Galatians 6:7 tell us? Most people, and I bet you know it. Whatsoever a man sows, he's going to reap that. So whatever we do with how we talk to people, slander, do whatever, we're going to reap what we sow. And I suppose that's why the wise man said, whoever speaks slander is a fool. And of course, we know what a fool is. We talked about it in the class that Kobe had, who's a fool? One that says there's no God. And that you're in that class when you start doing that. Then we talk about cursing. But now you yourselves are put off all these things: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy language out of your mouth. All filthy language needs to be eliminated, which includes cursing, profanity, vulgarity. I feel like I got something extra in my mouth. And vulgarity and filthy language out of our mouth. And there's just no place for curse words in our vocabulary of a Christian. Curse words are idle words. Question: what is a euphemism? Euphemism. Exactly. And we do that, and it's just so many euphemisms today. I mean, it's just all over. It's even in the church. A lot of times, people don't even realize that they're actually it's a sin, because you're taking God's name in vain when you use all these euphemisms. But do most people seem to understand what a euphemism is? No, they don't even consider it cursing. In back to business, I noticed on one of the I don't listen to Party Line all the time. I just like to listen to 2 or 3 things on there. This one guy that's always on there. But anyway, they get on there, and this lady on there, she uses that in a euphemism on there when she's talking about it. And I know she's not even considering that what it is. And that's the way with a lot of people is. But where did lying, we talk about lying now, where did lying begin? In the garden. One of the biggest lies, and it's haunted us ever since. And again, we've talked about this. Everybody talks about the innocent child. They don't say anything bad. They don't talk out of school or anything, but about lying or anything. But they kind of they'll kind of blame the dog or something sometimes. But lying is one of the easiest and earliest sins to learn. People lie first to their parents about things, and then to teachers, then to the police, and then to their mates. Generally, all along, they've been lying to God and to themselves. And telling the truth can hurt. It can get folks mad at you. So it's easier to just lie. It's easier to tell a lie than to commit to something that you don't want to do. Yeah, just how about coming over and help me this afternoon? Well, I've really got so-and-so. I just can't get there or whatnot. And you really didn't have anything. When you really just didn't want to do it. And but it is difficult, isn't it? Somebody wants you to do something, you say, I don't want to. But we need to learn that. It's kind of like the thing that you do when you get older. Is I get up to people now and they'll say, you know me, don't you? Yeah, you'll answer that before you think. And when I really know who they are, but I cannot remember their name. So I'm going to start trying my best to say, refresh my memory if you don't mind before I do this, because I did it with a lady that worked with GUMK with 16 years. She was out to the get together the other night, and she finally went over to Angie and said, Dickie says he knows me, but said if he knew me, he would talk to me. And I thought, so she come over and found out who she was, Kelly Hawk, and I worked with her 16 years, but she lost 100 pounds, and she looked a little different. But we talked, and they were always nice to meet, and I enjoyed working with and all. But then we come to complaining. Have you ever complained about anything? Oh, I tell you what. What do we complain about? Church building's too hot. Church building's too cold. I don't like my teacher. I don't like my boss. My wife leaves the top off the pen. My feet hurt. It's raining outside. It's too hot outside. My dog has fleas. My sister bugs me. I hate complainers. The lines are too long. Other people don't know how to drive. My husband has an annoying habit. I hate the picture on my driver's license, but it looks like me. This lesson's too long. How do we speak to our families? Have we ever spoken harshly to our families? Oh, wow. We know we have. I tell you, I've many times, Christian told me, no telling how many times, don't say it so hard. But I really wasn't thinking I was. I don't know. I just talk loud too much and all of that. And I'd say, well, I didn't mean to be talking hard, but would you just say it so hard? Don't say it so hard. And so sometimes we do talk hard. But I was just so amazed that one day here, I won't call their names, and they're not in here, thank goodness, but they know what they're talking about. But I was going to speak to the guy, and he was talking to one of his children and over there in the corner, and I thought, well, they're having a pretty serious conversation here. So I probably need to let them get that through with that. So afterwards, I come over there and said, well, I wanted to ask him something, and I did. And after I told him, I said, you was having a pretty good conversation. And he was and you could tell he was just regular tone of voice, and he was talking to him just like a grown person or something. He wasn't treating him like a kid or talking up or loud to him or anything. And he said, well, I was just trying to explain to him it's a lot better if he stayed in here than if we walked outside. So anyway, but he was doing it like he should. And but children, you see these advertisements where the dad was sitting there beside a tree smoking. The little kid had a little stick, and he was playing like he was smoking. And it's amazing. We do these things in front of our children and expect them not to do them. And so, but we need to speak kind. Parents are sometimes discouraged to siblings, and then parents are sometimes. Siblings fight, reunions and holidays are battlegrounds. Distance separates. Funerals and wills really cause a problem. What is the problem that comes up in funerals and wills? Greedy. I'm telling you, it is amazing to me. I had two first cousins and that were twins, and I told you this, but they were next to being the same person. And when mom and daddy died, man, they didn't speak for 5 years. And it's unreal how that can happen. And I was fortunate, Mom, that we didn't, me and my sister, neither one, Mom and them didn't have a whole lot of furniture or anything. And so we didn't have any problem with any of that stuff. And she let me have what I wanted, so it wasn't a problem. No, but we didn't have any problem. It was wonderful to be that way. But it's just so sad that many times does religion cause dissensions in families. So- Exactly. Yeah. And he said, that sometimes that our own enemies we come from where? Our families, our own families. And it does that is people in religion. I mean, if you didn't believe the way they believed or something, and I know that people that have disowned their children and their parents and disowned parents and all that, and it is if you certain things that you are not to eat with certain things just like that. But I mean, just because they went to a different place, they did congregation or something that they would just totally wouldn't even speak to each other. I've seen that happening. But how would you speak to those of the world? We'd be in the world, but not of the world, or in the world, but not of the world. And this can't be accomplished if we don't speak to them like we speak to each other, kind. And Solomon said, the world isn't mad at the church because, or someone said, the world isn't mad at the church because we're different. They're just mad because we aren't different enough. And how many times have you heard people talk about the church? Well, I know so-and-so goes down there and they pick out the hypocrite. At least they perceive them to be a hypocrite. And so the thing that we need to understand is that our speech identifies, that's who we are. Why do we know that's who we are? Where does speech come from? The heart. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And that's exactly what happens when we open that mouth. If you want to know what a man is, just see what comes out of his mouth. And okay, do our lives illustrate the uniqueness of the kingdom? Before people will investigate Christ, they often look to who's following him and what does. That's the question that we need to ask ourselves. Are we an example, or have we hindered somebody from following Jesus because we didn't do and talk like we should have talked? And I'm sure I've said things that it really shouldn't have said. I know I've said a lot of them I shouldn't have. And a lot of times, and there is a lesson, our last lesson is going to be silence. You should be silent in the time that you're not, of course. But I had one time that I've always regretted is a guy come up in a crane. I was operating a machinist and asked me, he said, could you find time sometime, let's get together and we could study the Bible. And I said, let me know when you want to do that. Instead of me saying, I'll go home with you this afternoon. He went home that afternoon, and for some reason, the Baptist preacher lived close to him, and they talked that evening, and he never would change back. And I felt so bad about that, and lost opportunity that I had. And so when we got opportunity, we need to speak the good stuff, because you may never get that opportunity again. Anybody else got anything? Thank you so much. And next week, we'll be talking about blasphemy, and that's an interesting subject. And we can do it. Thank you so much. And